Have you ever wondered why the woman you love seems to give you less than what she once gave to men who never cared about her? And if that thought keeps circling in your mind, how do you escape it? Or does it trap you, making every kiss and every touch feel like a comparison you can't win? This isn't about jealousy. This isn't about insecurity. It's about the sinking feeling that you invested more, yet you're receiving less. That her passion, her generosity, her wild side, peaked with men who treated her like nothing, while you, who showed up, stayed loyal, and gave your all, are left negotiating for scraps. And here's the hardest question of all. If she was capable of more before, why not with you? Why do you get the cautious, conditional version while others got the unfiltered fire? And once you've seen the evidence, can you ever unsee it? This is the loop so many men find themselves stuck in. A painful cycle of comparisons, a constant question. Why do I feel like I'm paying full price for a discounted experience? And the longer you sit with that thought, the deeper it cuts, until every moment of intimacy feels contaminated by the past. Today, we're going to break down why this feeling exists, why it doesn't go away on its own, and what it means for every man trying to build a real relationship in today's world. He wasn't looking for it. The discovery came by accident, buried in old messages she thought were long forgotten. Words that painted a version of her he never met. A version alive with reckless excitement, eager to please, burning with energy she gave away without hesitation. And the man on the other side of those messages? He didn't commit, didn't invest, didn't even bother to learn her last name. Yet he received her most unfiltered passion. Meanwhile, the man who chose her for a future, who waited months just to earn her trust, is left staring at evidence that his investment bought him less. The sting is not about her having a past. Every adult does. The betrayal is in the uneven exchange. The reality that she poured her best into those who deserved it least, then saved her most careful, restrained, conditional self for the man who actually showed up. This is not about virginity, not about outdated purity myths. It's about realizing desire and generosity were finite resources, and by the time she reached him, the reserves were low. That realization cuts deeper than jealousy ever could. It feels like emotional theft, like paying premium prices for an experience others got for free. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Every laugh, every touch, every kiss now carries a shadow. You're not fighting ghosts. You're competing against her own past, against the parts of herself she no longer offers. This is why so many men describe the feeling as robbery. Not of her body, not of her history, but of the fire, the openness, the thrill she once gave away so easily. And now, you're left wondering why love, loyalty, and commitment earn you less. The real wound isn't the thought of other men touching her. It's the math that doesn't add up. You gave more, yet you receive less. That's the crisis so many men stumble into without warning. An investment return crisis. And once you see it, the numbers never stop haunting you. Think about it. She made you wait. She tested your patience. She set conditions before giving affection. But the men who came before, they walked in with nothing, invested nothing, promised nothing, and walked out with her most unrestrained passion. For them, intimacy was instant. For you, intimacy was a negotiation. This is why the body count doesn't sting as much as the context. A woman who demanded commitment before intimacy plays a different game than the woman who gave her best to men who never cared, only to hand you the reserved version after you built a life with her. One history feels fair. The other feels like a scam. And once that thought takes root, it spreads. You start comparing timelines. You start seeing every kiss, every night together as a bad deal. You put in premium effort, loyalty, protection, devotion, yet the return feels like the economy package. It's not just unfair, it's insulting. That's why so many men describe it as being cheated twice. First, by the men who got more for less. Second, by the woman who asks you to believe that love is enough when the evidence proves her best self was already spent elsewhere. It's not insecurity. It's not control. It's the realization that the marketplace terms of your relationship are stacked against you. And once you see those terms clearly, nothing feels the same again. Once the comparisons start, they don't stop. What once felt like passion now feels like leftovers. That's the heart of what I call enthusiasm deficit syndrome. It's not about numbers. It's about energy. About realizing that her fire burned brightest for men who gave her the least, leaving you with the careful, restrained remainder. You see it in the details. With them, she was adventurous, spontaneous, bold. With you, she is measured, cautious, conditional. They got raw, unfiltered passion. You get duty dressed up as affection. It's not that she's incapable. It's that she chooses not to offer the same spark anymore. The imbalance creates a brutal inflation. Your investment rises, more commitment, more stability, more sacrifice. Yet the quality of the experience declines. You're paying more for less. What once was given freely now requires negotiation, scheduling, and endless compromises. Every embrace becomes a transaction. Every moment of intimacy another reminder that enthusiasm was a resource she already spent elsewhere. And then comes the cruelest cut. The things she now frames as boundaries or just not my thing were once things she did without hesitation. Preferences aren't fixed. They shift with attraction, with excitement, with who she wants to give her best to. That's why it stings so deeply. Because the adventurous version of her existed. You just weren't the man she chose to give him to. This is why men feel robbed. Because what you receive is not her fullest self, but the version that is slowed down, pulled back, and disguised decreased attraction as maturity. And once you realize that, even moments that used to feel normal suddenly feel like crumbs. The deeper you dig, the clearer it becomes. The terms of the deal are upside down. What you thought was love begins to look like a bad trade. This is what I call the value exchange catastrophe. You bring more to the table, yet you walk away with less. Meanwhile, men who gave nothing walked away with the very best of her. It's like paying luxury prices and getting bargain bin service, while others walked in empty-handed and got the VIP package for free. Her generosity peaked when commitment was lowest, and the moment true loyalty entered the picture, her passion started to fade. The rules don't just feel unfair, they feel backwards. You notice it in timelines. Strangers, flings, men who never intended to stay, got her most enthusiastic self within days. You waited months just to break past the surface. You built stability, sacrificed time, proved commitment. Yet your reward is the cautious, half-hearted version. That's what I call the relationship penalty. Being a good man actually costs you more while returning less. It's no wonder so many men say modern dating punishes investment and rewards detachment. The very qualities that should inspire her best, commitment, protection, love, become the reasons she gives you less. And when she calls that maturity or growth, it doesn't sound like wisdom. It sounds like an excuse. Because if maturity means less passion and growth means less generosity, then what you're left with isn't progress, it's decline. And the harsh truth? The foundation starts to feel fraudulent. You didn't just buy into love. You bought into a deal where the terms were never in your favor. Here's the paradox that breaks so many men. The safer she feels with you, the less she gives. It doesn't make sense at first. Security is supposed to unlock intimacy. Love is supposed to deepen passion. But in reality, her generosity often peaked when she felt the most uncertain, when she wasn't sure if the man would stay. Think about it. In the chase, she was bold. In the unknown, she was adventurous. When she feared losing someone, she gave everything she had. But once she feels you're locked in, once she knows you're not leaving, the fire cools. What should have been the reward for loyalty becomes the punishment. Psychologists call this secure attachment punishment. You achieve the very thing every man is told to pursue, making her feel safe, cherished, protected. Yet the result is the opposite of what you expected. The passion doesn't rise with security, it drops. The very effort you poured into building trust becomes the reason the energy dies. The difference shows in her effort. For men, she had to win. She performed at her peak. With you, the man she already has, she offers routine. What was once explosive becomes predictable. What once felt alive now feels managed. This is why long-term relationships so often slide into routine instead of adventure. The paradox isn't that she can't be passionate. It's that her highest levels of desire show up in the uncertainty, not in the security you worked so hard to create. And once you see this, every reassurance she gives about valuing commitment starts to sound hollow. Because commitment, in practice, has only earned you less. Once the past comes to light, every moment with her feels like a contest. You're no longer just sharing intimacy. You're competing inside what I call the performance competition matrix. Every touch, every kiss, every night together is now measured against a lineup of men who came before you. And the brutal reality? The odds say you probably won't come out on top. It's like being judged at work, not on your actual presentation, but against the very best presentations of people who aren't even in the room anymore. You can't see them. You can't learn from them. Yet you're compared to them constantly. That invisible scoreboard never turns off. Her enthusiasm becomes the live scoreboard. When she initiates, experiments, leans in with genuine passion, it feels like you're ranking high. When she's cold, distant, or routine, it feels like you've slipped below her historic best. Suddenly, normal intimacy becomes high stakes. You're not making love, you're fighting shadows. And here's the cruel twist. Technique tips won't save you. Because this isn't about being good. It's about being better than. Better than her firsts. Better than her peak curiosity. Better than the thrill of novelty that you can never replicate. The more partners she's had, the lower the odds that you'll ever be the best. The math is merciless. This is why so many men lose confidence after learning the truth. It's not just pressure. It's pressure against ghosts you can't outdo. And when she says, "Don't worry, you're great," it doesn't erase the fear. Because the problem isn't your absolute performance. It's your ranking in her private history. And that's a tournament you were never invited to play, but will always be forced to compete in. Here's where the stakes get even higher. Her loyalty isn't just about love or compatibility or shared values. It's tied directly to her level of sexual satisfaction. That's the brutal reality behind what I call the loyalty correlation algorithm. Research shows a strong link between a woman's fulfillment in the bedroom and her likelihood of staying faithful. Which means your relationship security isn't built only on trust or commitment, it's built on performance. And when her past sets the benchmark, you're not just competing for her affection, you're competing for her loyalty. Think about the pressure this creates. If her historical best was wild, spontaneous, and passionate, then every moment with you is silently judged against that bar. If you can't match it, or worse, if you fall short, the algorithm predicts danger, infidelity, distance, or even collapse. Suddenly, your role as a partner isn't just about love or character. It's about whether you can outshine men you've never met, in situations you'll never know, at standards you didn't set. Her enthusiasm becomes an early warning system. When she's engaged, alive, leaning in, you feel secure. But when it fades, when it turns routine, it doesn't just feel like loss of attraction. It feels like the door cracking open for someone else to walk through. This is why revelations about her past trigger lasting anxiety. Because deep down, you understand the math. Her loyalty isn't unconditional. It's conditional on how you rank against memories you can never erase. And that truth turns every bedroom moment into more than intimacy. It becomes survival. There's another wound that cuts deeper than most men expect. It's what I call emotional currency devaluation. The moment you realize that the experiences, gestures, and words that feel rare and priceless to you were once handed out freely to men who did nothing to earn them. It's like discovering the currency you thought was gold is actually paper. What you believed was sacred, a private smile, a playful phrase, a special memory, turns out to be common, recycled, and already spent. The intimacy you thought was unique suddenly feels mass-produced. That shift changes everything. A kiss no longer feels like a gift. An inside joke no longer feels exclusive. Even her whispers of love start to sound hollow, because you now know they were spoken to others before you. What once held deep weight now feels like counterfeit. And here's where it gets worse. The more you know, the more the value drops. If those nights of passion were meaningless to her, then what does that say about similar nights with you? If the things she swore were rare were actually routine, how can you believe they hold meaning now? This is why men feel gutted after discovering the truth, because it's not just about her history, it's about the devaluation of your present. What should be special feels ordinary. What should feel authentic feels repeated. And when intimacy is stripped of its exclusivity, no matter how genuine her feelings may be today, your heart reads it as cheap. That's the cruelty of emotional currency devaluation. It robs you not of the moment itself, but of the meaning behind it. And once that meaning collapses, every gesture carries less weight than before. One of the harshest truths a man can face is what I call the scarcity illusion collapse. You thought her passion, her adventurous side, her generosity were rare treasures. Something unlocked only by you, earned through your devotion. Then you find out those same treasures were once handed out freely, to men who gave almost nothing. It's like buying a painting believing it's a rare masterpiece, only to discover it's a mass print, sold cheap to anyone who walked by. The value isn't just lowered, it's shattered. And along with it, your sense of being the one she chose to give her special self to. The collapse shows itself in small but brutal ways. The things she now frames as rare gifts, moments, acts, experiences, were in fact her standard offerings in the past. What she once gave away without thought, she now guards like scarce currency. Not because she can't, but because she won't. That's when you realize the scarcity isn't natural. It's selective, and you're on the wrong side of that selection. This is why so many men describe the discovery as being scammed. You invested under false terms, thinking you were gaining access to something rare. Instead, you're paying premium price for downgraded service. Her maturity or growth explanations don't fix the sting. They make it worse. Because if growth means less, if maturity means withholding, then growth feels like decline. The illusion of scarcity was what held the value together. Destroy that illusion, and suddenly every intimate moment feels devalued. Not because the act itself changed, but because your perception of its worth collapsed forever. Here's the revelation that hits like a punch to the gut: the treatment hierarchy. You start to see that you're ranked lower in her system than men who gave less, promised less, and cared less. It's backwards, but undeniable once the patterns become clear. Look closely. The men who treated her as temporary entertainment, they got instant access, full enthusiasm, her best effort. You, the man who showed loyalty, commitment, and long-term value, are handed the cautious, conditional, watered-down version. Premium investment, economy service. That's the exchange. It feels like a customer service system gone insane. Casual customers are given VIP treatment. Loyal, high-value customers are told to wait in line. And the longer you compare, the more obvious the contradiction becomes. She says she values commitment. She says she respects loyalty. Yet her behavior rewards detachment and short-term interest. The most painful part? Realizing this hierarchy isn't temporary. If the pattern holds across multiple relationships, then being the good guy always means receiving less. Which means no matter how much more you invest, the ranking doesn't change. You're stuck in a system where value doesn't equal treatment. That's why her reassurances often sound hollow. I prefer commitment, she says. But if commitment only earns you less than what casual flings once received, then her words and her actions live in two different worlds. And you're trapped in the one where loyalty is punished. This revelation is what makes men feel like the whole foundation is broken. Because the problem isn't that she doesn't know how to love. The problem is that the hierarchy she operates on ensures you'll never be treated like the man you actually are. Once you uncover her past, you step into what I call the retroactive competition framework. Suddenly, you're not just her partner. You're a contestant in a tournament you never signed up for. The worst part? The other players had advantages you can never replicate. Think about it. Those men met her in her physical prime during peak curiosity, when everything felt new and thrilling. They got her in the chase, when she still had something to prove. You're with her after novelty has faded, when routine has crept in, when her sense of urgency is gone. That's not a level playing field. That's historical disadvantage. And it's not only other men you're competing with. You're also competing against past versions of her. The bold, adventurous, boundary-pushing woman she once was might not even exist anymore. She's been replaced by someone more cautious, more routine-focused. You're not just chasing ghosts. You're chasing a version of her that's gone forever. This is why self-improvement or technique hacks rarely solve the problem. The issue isn't your absolute ability. It's your relative ranking in a contest where the rules changed after the game already ended. You can't recreate her sense of novelty. You can't rewind time to her peak years. Yet every moment with her is filtered through comparisons to conditions you'll never have access to. That's why the retroactive competition feels like a trap. Even if you give your best, the scoreboard is tilted against you. And the cruelest part? The competition never ends. Because every time you step into intimacy, you're not just with her, you're up against history itself. So how do you deal with this? How do you live with the feeling that the deck was stacked against you from the start? This is where the recovery and acceptance strategy comes in. Because without it, the comparisons eat you alive. The first step is brutal honesty. You have to look at the terms as they really are, not as you wish they were. Can you genuinely accept getting less than what other men once received without drowning in resentment? Can you stay without slowly eroding your own sense of worth? If the answer is no, then you already know the decision you have to make. The second step is separating useful knowledge from poison. Not every detail about her past helps you. Some of it only tortures you without offering a way forward. You have to recognize what's actionable: patterns, treatment dynamics, her choices, and filter out the rest. Otherwise, you're just replaying pain with no purpose. The third step is reframing. This is not about you being inadequate. It's about her patterns, her psychology. She treated others better with less because that's how her system worked, not because you lack value. Once you see it as a marketplace dynamic instead of a personal failure, the sting loses some of its edge. Finally, acceptance is a choice. You either stay and learn to live within the hierarchy, or you leave and find a relationship where your investment is rewarded from day one. Neither path is easy, but both are better than living stuck in comparison hell. Because recovery isn't about rewriting her past, it's about reclaiming your future. The hardest part isn't the discovery itself. It's the shadow it casts of for everything that comes after. Once you've seen the imbalance, you can't unsee it. That's why the long-term implications are so destructive. First comes the pressure. You know now that her satisfaction is tied to her loyalty, which means every time you step into the bedroom, it feels less like connection and more like a performance review. And that pressure doesn't fade. It lingers. It gnaws at your confidence. It poisons intimacy. Then comes the trust issue. No matter how much she reassures you, the knowledge that she was once more generous with others plants a seed of doubt that never fully dies. You begin to wonder, if she gave them more with less, what does that say about what she truly feels for me? That question doesn't disappear. It waits in the background, whispering at every high and every low. Over time, resentment builds. Moments that should feel warm and intimate become triggers. A laugh reminds you of someone else she laughed with. A kiss feels like a recycled gesture. What was once romantic becomes a reminder that you are receiving less than men who never deserved more. And that resentment doesn't stay locked inside the relationship. It seeps into your self-esteem, your sense of value, even the way you carry yourself in the world. You start questioning not just her, but yourself. And that damage is what makes recovery so difficult. Because the truth is, once the frame is broken, every future moment is filtered through it. And unless you confront it head-on, the past will always haunt your present. So where does this leave you? If you felt this sting, you already know. It isn't about jealousy. It isn't about insecurity. It's about realizing you invested more and got less. It's about waking up to the fact that the terms of the deal were never in your favor. And once you see that, you can't go back to blind faith. The goal isn't to shame women for their past. The goal is to shine a light on the dynamics that make men feel robbed, so you can make informed choices. Because every man deserves to know the truth before he invests his time, his energy, and his future. You have two paths. You can try to accept the hierarchy, live with the comparisons, and manage the damage. Or you can walk away and seek a relationship where your value is matched, where your investment is rewarded, where loyalty doesn't earn you less. Either way, the key is awareness. Because without it, you're trapped in a system that feeds on your silence. And if this message hits you, if it explains the unease you've never been able to put into words, then stick around. Because this is just the beginning. We're going to dig deeper into the psychology of attraction, loyalty, and modern relationships. And if you understand these realities, you'll make better decisions, not just in love, but in life. So subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this with the man who needs to hear it. Because the truth isn't meant to break you, it's meant to free you.